Inside the ugly Chris Paul LA Clippers divorce editor's note, Chris Paul announced his retirement on Friday, February 13, ending a 21-year Hall of Fame career. This story was originally published on Dec. 16, 2025. The wireless internet worked well on the private plane Chris Paul flew in from Atlanta to Los Angeles the morning after he was unceremoniously sent home and into an uncertain basketball future. Only a few hours had passed since LA Clippers president Lawrence Frank informed Paul that the organization was parting ways with the best player in franchise history, just 21 games into what was supposed to be a karmically and narratively pleasing retirement tour. Instead, the season had devolved into disaster, for the 40-year-old future Hall of Fame point guard and for the team. LA was 5-16 and 14th in the Western Conference. Confusion bubbled across the league. What was so bad that the Clippers needed to urgently send Paul home from a road trip in the middle of the night? What had gone so wrong so quickly that the team couldn't wait one more week to make this move at home? The move bewildered many in the NBA, including a man Paul had barely spoken to since the two led the Lob City Clippers, an era that had ended in 2017. Blake Griffin's relationship with Paul was frosty at the best of times. But over the past few years there had been signs of it thawing. Nice comments about each other through the media. Griffin even contributed to a tribute video when Paul moved up to second on the NBA's career assists leaderboard last season. Griffin sent a text to Paul that morning as he flew home. He knew he might be the only person who could really understand what Paul had experienced. A cold dismissal by a franchise that had once celebrated him too. Paul called Griffin as soon as his plane landed. Via FaceTime, they added the third co-star of Lob City, DeAndre Jordan. It marked the first time the three had been together in 8 years, not since their Clippers era ended with Paul being dealt to Houston and Griffin's shocking trade to Detroit just 6 months after he had signed a maximum contract extension. The irony that this trauma bonding buried whatever had been between them all these years was not lost on any of them. Paul posted a screenshot of the FaceTime on Instagram showing all three former Clippers smiling. They laughed at the absurdity of it all. Griffin has retired and moved on to a thriving career in television. Jordan is winding down his career at the end of the bench for the woeful New Orleans Pelicans. Paul had thought he was doing the same with the Clippers until the night before, when Frank told him that the decision to send him packing had already been made and that none of his arguments to stay mattered anymore. It was a nice story until it wasn't. What transpired instead was a toxic combination of miscalculations, miscommunication and shocking underperformance from a team many had picked as a dark horse in the loaded Western Conference. Everyone went in with good intentions. An opinionated future Hall of Fame player at the end of his career hoping for one final ride with his former team. That team, which is near the end of its largely disappointing, hugely pressurized Kawhi Leonard experiment, which has resulted in exactly one conference finals appearance in 6 seasons, hoping its former frontman could address a leadership vacuum it has struggled to fill. But endings are rarely clean or painless in the NBA. And this one, for player and team, was born out of the most flammable combination in sports: misconceptions and dysfunction. The Chris Paul reunion in Los Angeles was more than simply doomed from nearly the beginning. It might also serve as foreshadowing of a future for the Clippers even more challenging than their present. The call with Paul, Griffin and Jordan lasted about 90 minutes, according to multiple sources with knowledge of the conversation, mostly because it took Paul that long to try to make sense of the events that led the Clippers to discard him. There were a few arguments with head coach Tyronn Lue and especially associate head coach Jeff Van Gundy. There had also been multiple meetings with Frank about being more positive and not engaging in activities the organization perceived as divisive. There really wasn't one thing, said one source close to the situation. This isn't like Junior Smith throwing the soup in Cleveland. But there was a wild divergence in expectations of what Paul's role on the team would be when he signed as a free agent on a 1-year, $3.6 million contract this summer, multiple sources said. The team envisioned Paul's role as an end of the bench, veteran leader who needed little maintenance, sources said. As brilliant as stars James Harden and Leonard can be on the court, both are generally well liked by teammates and respected. Neither has ever been regarded as a vocal leader. No one on the current Clippers roster fits that description except Paul, which seemed to be part of the appeal of signing him. Inside the